Imagine the most claustrophobic, restrictive life possible.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to really picture this for a second. Think about a life where every single choice you make is dictated by someone else.
Every single one.
Exactly. What you eat for dinner, who you spend your weekends with, what clothes you wear. Even the very words that come out of your mouth are meticulously controlled by another person. You have zero autonomy.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It is. Now imagine choosing that cage on purpose.
Wow.
Address it directly to yourself right now. Have you ever wanted to just hand the steering wheel of your life over to someone else?
Just let them drive.
Right, just totally give up the burden of making decisions. Because for the person we are talking about today, the alternative to that cage, the truly terrifying alternative, is her own absolute self-destruction.
It's an incredibly provocative premise to sit with, and it gets right to the very dark beating heart of what we are unpacking today.
It really does. We are taking a deep dive into a profoundly twisted, unsettling, and just completely gripping world today. Specifically, the one meticulously built in the book, How to Survive in the Woods by Kat Rosenfield.
Such an intense read.
So intense. For those of you who might not know her background, Rosenfield is a former MTV reporter and a New York Times bestselling writer. And with this particular work, she has crafted something that defies easy categorization.
Yeah, you can't really put it in just one box.
Exactly. I mean, it's a literary thriller, sure, but it's also part psychological domestic drama and part grueling, incredibly visceral wilderness survival nightmare. It's absolutely wild.
It really is a masterclass in tension, and to guide you through this, we've pulled together a fascinating stack of sources to analyze.
Oh yeah, we have a lot to get through.
We've got the full text of the novel itself, obviously, but we are going to be paying very special attention to a few key elements. We're looking at the chilling prologue, the specific survival rules that act as the structural framing for the narrative chapters, and even the author's acknowledgments at the very end of the book.
Yes, the acknowledgments.
Those acknowledgments contain a real-world origin story for this plot that completely blew my mind when I first read it.
I cannot wait to get to that origin story. It changes the entire context of the book for me.
Yeah.
But let's start where the story starts, because from the very first page, this narrative just grabs you by the throat and refuses to let go.
It really does not hold back.
It doesn't. But I want to be clear with you right up front. This isn't just a simple thriller with a fun little twist at the end. It is a really profound meditation on trauma, on coercive control, and the radically different, sometimes horrifying ways human beings try to survive the onslaught of their own minds.
Precisely. The core question pulsing beneath every single chapter of this book is this: what happens when the defense mechanisms we build to keep ourselves safe?
The psychological walls, the rules, the literal cages.
Exactly. What happens when those things become the very things that are slowly trying to kill us?
Right, so let's jump straight into the psychology of that cage. The author frames the beginning of the book with a survival rule. Rule number 1, nobody is coming to save you.
A brutal rule to start with.
So brutal. And we start with a prologue that is just as brutal in its honesty. We meet our protagonist, Emma. And we meet her in the immediate aftermath of her surviving a suicide attempt. She slits her wrists in a bathtub, fully intending to end her life. But she doesn't. She wakes up in a sterile hospital room to the rhythmic beeping of cardiac monitors. But here is the kicker. She isn't relieved.
Not at all.
No, she isn't having some cinematic, tearful realization that life is a gift. She's absolutely furiously enraged that she is still alive.
And that immediate subversion of the typical survival narrative is what makes this text so brilliant right out of the gate. Think about the cultural script we usually follow when someone survives something like this.
Right, there's this expectation of gratitude.
Gratitude of a second chance, yeah. The hospital nurse, this very cheerful woman named Cheryl, comes in, squeezes Emma's shoulder, and calls her a survivor. And the text tells us that the word literally makes Emma want to scream.
She hates that word.
She despises it. Because in Emma's mind, survival is something more than just the biological state of not dying. She believes it's intrinsically tied to desire. A true survivor to her is someone who fought off death because they desperately wanted to live.
Yeah, she feels like an imposter.
Exactly. Emma wanted to be dead. She planned it. So she doesn't see herself as a survivor. She sees herself as a catastrophic failure who couldn't even execute her own death correctly.
It's so dark.
The overwhelming shame of that failure is the only emotion she can actually feel, piercing through the narcotic fog of the hospital drugs.
It's such a compelling place to start a story. She's lying there thinking about some Instagram influencer she read about who accidentally fell into the Grand Canyon while doing a yoga pose for a photo.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part.
And Emma is genuinely embarrassed that some random person could die by accident just slipping on a rock when she couldn't do it on purpose after months of meticulous planning. She's literally lying in the hospital bed, plotting her next attempt, while putting on a fake smile and pretending to be grateful to the hospital staff.
Just totally performing for them.
Exactly. So eventually she gets discharged. She's wearing this pink sweatshirt from her nutrition company, which is called Vitalist, and it has this incredibly ironic tagline on it. Creative consumption.
Creative consumption, yeah.
She walks out, gets into a rideshare. It's a Prius driven by a guy named Logan. The app says he's got a 4.9 rating, just a normal everyday interaction, right?
Right.
But he looks in the rearview mirror. He sees the heavy bandages on her wrists. He sees what she tried to do. And she's just entirely blunt with him. She says, I wanted to die.
Just lays it out there.
Yeah. He asks her why not. And when she doesn't have a good answer, he just smiles this very calm, earnest smile at her and says, well, because you can't. You're not allowed to. It's the rules.
And this is the moment the entire psychological architecture of the book locks into place. Because we have to ask ourselves, why does that specific, rather arbitrary phrase completely short-circuit Emma's brain?
It's like a magic spell or something.
It really is. The text is very explicit here. It tells us that the whispering voice of suicide in her head,
That constant, unrelenting drumbeat.
yes, that constant kill yourself that has plagued her for years, finally goes dead quiet. The exact moment Logan, a total stranger, issues that command a biological switch flips inside her.
It's fascinating.
To understand why she reacts this way, why she craves that kind of authority, we have to look backward at her childhood.
And what a childhood it was. Emmy grew up with a father named Gregory Sharp, who was a hardcore, off-the-grid doomsday prepper.
Hardcore is almost an understatement.
Seriously. He raised her on a remote compound near Grass Valley. And the author draws this brilliant contrast that I think really helps you understand Emma's warped worldview. Emma remembers a time she visited a normal friend's house. You know those cutesy wooden signs people buy at craft stores and hang in their kitchens?
Oh yeah, the live, laugh, love type sign?
Exactly. Her friend's mom had one that read, in this house we do grace, we do mistakes, we do... I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Emma stared at that sign and literally could not comprehend the concept of a household where mistakes were allowed.
Because in her house, in her dad's supply shed, there was a sign written in harsh block letters.
Right. The very first rule on that sign was, nobody is coming to save you.
If we pull back and look at the psychological implications of that upbringing, you realize that for Emma, rules are the ultimate currency of safety. When you are raised to believe that the world is on the brink of catastrophic collapse.
The event, as her father called it.
Right, the event. When that is always just around the corner, rules mean you know exactly what is expected of you in a chaotic, hostile universe. Rules are a substitute for an internal compass when your own compass is constantly pointing towards self-destruction.
She stared at that We Do Grace sign as a kid and felt panic.
Total panic. Her father's rigid, unforgiving survival rules made sense to her. So cut back to that Prius. When Logan, the stranger, asserts a firm, non-negotiable rule, you're not allowed to die, he is unknowingly speaking her native language.
He's offering her that rigid structure.
He is offering an external boundary of concrete to hold back the terrifying internal chaos of her own mind.
I have to pause you there, though, because I'm putting myself in Emma's shoes, or really anyone listening to this. We've all met people who are a little controlling, right?
Sure.
But what Emma does next is the ultimate abdication of responsibility. She essentially views her life as a high-speed vehicle that she absolutely cannot be trusted to drive. So she just hands the keys over to Logan.
She surrenders entirely.
The book jumps forward in time. First a year, then 5 years. And we get to see the full extent of this cage she has built for herself. They are married now. And Logan controls literally everything.
Everything. He tells people at parties to her face that he knows Emma better than she knows herself. He dictates her diet, her hobbies, her friends, even her role at her own company, Vitalist.
It's so suffocating to read.
The slow, methodical erasure of Emma's identity is chilling because it doesn't happen all at once. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Right. She starts referring to herself as an endorsement purely because...
Because Logan says she is one. But the most illustrative anecdote of this erasure, the one that really demonstrates how deep the brainwashing goes, is the incident with the fennel.
Oh, the fennel. This drove me absolutely crazy while reading. Put yourself in this situation. They were at a dinner party at her friend Shay's house. Logan casually leans over the table and announces to the room, "Oh, Emma doesn't like fennel."
But she does.
The text tells us Emma actually loves fennel. She has this incredibly vivid sensory childhood memory of wild fennel growing near her dad's compound. She remembers snapping the stalks, the sweet, sharp black licorice smell lingering on her fingers.
It's a core memory.
Yeah. But the second Logan declares that she doesn't like it, she instantly nods and agrees. She literally erases her own lived experience, her own sensory memory, to conform to the reality he just dictated.
And Shay, who is a genuinely good, perceptive friend, sees right through this dynamic. She pulls Emma aside later and makes this incredibly sharp comparison.
Such a good comparison.
Shay compares Logan to a manipulative dermatologist she used to see. She says this doctor would purposely point out tiny invisible flaws and make you feel like the ugliest, most deformed woman in the world just so you would feel desperate enough to pay him to fix you.
Wow.
Shay is trying to throw Emma a lifeline. She warns Emma that she's disappearing, that Logan is eroding her sense of self. And how does Emma react to this genuine concern?
She goes completely nuclear. She intentionally and viciously destroys the friendship. She looks Shay in the eye and tells her they are just casual acquaintances, completely burning the bridge. And why? To protect the cage.
Because to Emma, the cage is the only thing keeping her alive.
But here's where I really struggle, and where I think anyone listening would struggle. The price of maintaining that cage gets exponentially steeper, crossing the line from psychological control into horrifying physical abuse. And this brings us to the immersion blender lie.
This part is just gut-wrenching.
Logan confronts Emma because he smells McDonald's French fries in her hair. He has forbidden her from eating fast food, and his reaction isn't just to yell. Out of nowhere, in a split second of terrifying violence, he grabs a massive fistful of her hair and rips it entirely out of her scalp from the roots.
The suddenness of that violence is meant to shock the reader just as it shocks Emma. But this is where we have to dive deep into the psychology of coercive control and trauma bonding.
Because she doesn't leave.
Right. Rather than pack her bags, call the police, or run out the door, which is what a healthy brain would signal you to do. Emma internalizes the violence. She covers up the bloody bald spot on her scalp, and she crafts a lie. She tells everyone she caught her hair in an immersion blender while making Logan a protein shake.
It's so messed up.
But what happens next is where the psychological manipulation reaches its absolute peak. Logan doesn't just accept her cover story, he actively co-opts it.
Yes, he starts telling the story himself at cocktail parties.
Exactly. He casts himself as the hero of the narrative. He tells people that he heard her scream, ran into the kitchen, and unplugged the blender just in time to save his clumsy wife from being entirely scalped.
And he gaslights her so effectively with such relentless confidence that the text says she actually starts to picture his fake, heroic version of events, brighter and clearer than her own actual memory of the assault. But again, my question is how? How does a person's psychology twist to a point where they accept that reality?
Because of the transaction she made in that Prius years ago. To Emma, Logan's occasional explosive cruelty is simply the toll she has to pay to stay alive. The logic of the abused mind is incredibly complex. In her twisted internal accounting, if he occasionally rips her hair out, but he keeps the suicidal ideation at bay, she considers it a fair trade.
A horrific trade.
He is the warden of the asylum, and as long as she is locked inside, she can't hurt herself.
But eventually even Emma realizes that the cage is turning into a death row. The abuse is escalating. The control is absolute. And she realizes that if she stays, he is eventually going to kill her anyway. Which brings us to a massive shift in the narrative framed by rule number 9. Be sure of your target.
This is the pivot point where the story transforms from a claustrophobic domestic drama into a sprawling wilderness thriller.
This is a huge shift.
Emma finally reaches her breaking point, and she ends up reuniting with a woman named Taylor. Now, Taylor is a crucial character. She's Logan's ex-girlfriend and also his former business partner at Vitalist.
And Taylor is the only person in Logan and Emma's orbit who didn't buy the immersion blender story for a single second.
Not for 1 second.
There's this great flashback where at a party, Taylor just walks right up to Party. Emma looks at her scalp and says, "I know he pulled your hair out." So because they share this mutual understanding of what a monster Logan is, the two of them hatch a plan.
A very dark plan.
They are going to take Logan on a hiking trip far away from civilization, and they are going to kill him. And the setting they choose for this murder is absolutely vital for you to understand. They choose the 100-mile wilderness in Maine.
I cannot overstate how important the geography is to this story. For those of you who might not be familiar with the Appalachian Trail, the 100-mile wilderness is the final, brutal northbound stretch leading up to Mount Katahdin.
It's notorious.
This is not a casual weekend nature walk. It is a grueling, relentless landscape of slick roots, jagged rocks, deep bogs, and punishing elevation changes. More importantly, there are no public roads that cross it. There are no towns. There are no supply points. There is zero cell service.
You are on your own.
Once you are in, you are entirely committed. It is one of the most isolated, unforgiving environments in the eastern United States.
Right, it's a place where mistakes are fatal. And right before they head into the tree line, they stop at a hiker hostel and meet a local guy named Pete. Pete is a logistics guy who drops food catches for thru hikers. And Pete drops this incredible, horrifying piece of local lore on them.
The ghost moose.
He warns them about something called ghost moose. Now, when I first read this, I thought it was some kind of supernatural campfire story. But it's entirely real, and it is horrifying. Pete explains that these are moose whose bodies have been infested by tens of thousands of winter ticks.
The biological reality of this is staggering. We aren't talking about a dozen ticks. We are talking about infestations so severe that the parasites literally drain the animal of its blood over the course of a winter.
Exactly. The ticks drain them so severely that it scrambles the moose's brain. The parasite leaves the body walking around, but the mind is gone. So the moose just wanders blindly through the forest, walking in endless, destructive circles, rubbing its own fur off against trees until it looks like a pale ghost.
Until it finally just collapses and dies of exhaustion and blood loss.
And we really need to pause and appreciate how the author uses the ghost moose as a profound, overarching metaphor for unresolved trauma. People carrying deep, unexamined trauma are exactly like the ghost moose.
They are being drained by parasites they can't even see, stumbling blindly through their lives, walking in destructive, repetitive circles, engaging in the same toxic behaviors and relationships over and over without ever understanding why.
Pete looks at these three city people, Logan, Emma, and Taylor, and he gives them a warning that serves as the thesis for the rest of the book. He says, whatever you've got buried, no matter how deep the trail brings it up to the surface. And when it gets there, a word to the wise, you'll have to deal with it.
And none of our three hikers are remotely prepared to deal with reality because they are all playing elaborate games of pretend. Let's look at the layers of deception they are carrying into these woods.
Let's do it. First, you have Logan. He acts like this invulnerable, arrogant alpha male. He laughs at Pete's warnings about the wilderness. He openly scoffs at the heavy gear Emma packed, and he truly believes he can conquer millions of years of brutal nature with sheer, unearned ego.
Then you have Taylor. Taylor claims to be a highly experienced, rugged hiker. She casually brags about hiking sections of the Pacific Crest Trail. But more importantly, she has built an entire lucrative Instagram influencer persona around her unspecified, vaguely hinted at trauma.
So the hashtags.
She posts curated photos of herself looking soulful in the woods using hashtags like Bent Not Broken and Survivor. She has monetized her pain.
But the deepest, most dangerous deception belongs to Emma. Because Emma is playing the role of the fragile, helpless indoorsman. She's playing the weak, clumsy wife who needs Logan to protect her from everything. But in reality, thanks to her doomsday prepper father in Grass Valley, Emma is a highly trained, elite survivalist.
It's such a great secret to keep from the reader and the characters.
While Logan is making fun of her packing, she's secretly packing iodine tablets instead of the fancy battery-powered UV water purifiers Logan bought, because her father taught her that technology always fails when you need it most. She is secretly studying a heavy textbook called Edible Plants of New England.
The contrast between who she pretends to be and who she actually is becomes the fulcrum of the entire plot. Emma knows how to pack a pack for the ideal weight ratio. She knows how to field strip and shoot an AR-15 blindfolded. She knows on a cellular level how to survive.
It's a completely different skill set than Logan thinks she has.
The text beautifully references a quote from Henry David Thoreau here. Thoreau, the great nature writer, actually tried to hike this exact wilderness in Maine. And he ended up quitting because he found the sheer indifferent brutality of it terrifying. He wrote, "This ground is not prepared for you."
That is so fitting.
And that is the lesson the 100-mile wilderness teaches. Nature does not care about your Instagram following. It does not care about your toxic alpha male posturing. It does not care about the fake submissive personality you've constructed to appease your abusive husband. The wilderness strips all of that away.
And that stripping away begins immediately on their very first night. This aligns with the book's rule number 5. Be aware of what surrounds you. After a grueling first day of hiking, which, by the way, almost completely breaks Kaler, physically proving instantly that her expert hiker persona is a complete and utter lie.
Total lie.
They make camp at this incredibly remote, dark mountain pond, and they execute the plan.
It is a chillingly efficient clinical sequence.
It really is. Logan is exhausted, so he starts drinking gin and tonics to relax. Emma discreetly slips a heavy dose of crushed sedatives into his drink. And once he is completely incapacitated, barely conscious, they drag him to the edge of the freezing pond and drown him.
The audio landscape the author paints in this scene is something that will stick with you. Emma is standing on the muddy bank, and she can hear the exact strangled sound of Logan's head being pushed underwater.
It's haunting.
She hears the frantic gurgle of his lungs filling with water, the final pathetic thrashing. Once he still drags his heavy sodden body out of the water, she zips him entirely into his expensive sleeping bag, essentially turning it into a makeshift nylon shroud.
And then, in this very dramatic, almost cinematic gesture, Taylor takes Logan's monogrammed silver whiskey flask and hurls it deep into the pitch-black woods.
At this moment, they think the ordeal is over. They believe they have successfully enacted the ultimate trauma response. They have killed the monster. They have eliminated the abuser.
Right. They did it.
But when Emma wakes up the next morning, stiff and freezing in her tent, the actual nightmare begins. She unzips her tent, looks out the muddy bank, and the body is gone.
Completely gone. Emma walks over to the spot where they left a 200-pound dead man, and there is nothing there except a single, violently shredded piece of the nylon sleeping bag. Kaler wakes up, sees it, and immediately tries to frantically rationalize the impossible.
She starts stammering, "A bear? A bear must have smelled him."
A bear must have dragged him off into the brush. She is desperate to hold on to the illusion that they are still in control of the plan. But Emma, utilizing her actual survival instincts, walks quietly into the dense brush to investigate. And she finds something that permanently shatters Taylor's bear theory.
She finds Logan's silver whiskey flask, the one Taylor threw into the dark the night before.
Yeah.
And it's not just lying haphazardly in the dirt where it landed. It is sitting perfectly upright, deliberately and carefully placed beneath a canopy of fern fronds, completely sheltered from the morning rain.
If you are listening to this, I want you to really put yourself in Emma's boots in that exact second. Look at the upright flask. Realize the terrifying truth. Animals do not place silver flasks perfectly upright to protect them from the rain.
A bear did not do this.
Someone or something with human hands and human intent sat in the dark woods last night and watched them commit a murder. Someone took the body. They are no longer the predators. They are being actively hunted.
The psychological toll of this sudden realization is instantaneous. Emma is staring into a dense thicket of trees, her heart hammering, and she hallucinates, or maybe terrifyingly, she actually sees Logan's blackened, waterlogged, rotting face grinning at her from the shadows of the brush.
It's so creepy.
It is the ultimate return of the repressed. Pete's warning at the hiker hostel echoes perfectly here. The trail brings up what you've buried. Emma thought she could literally bury Logan, buried her trauma in the mud of the 100-mile wilderness.
But the wilderness is acting as a mirror, reflecting her immense guilt, paranoia, and terror right back at her. The environment itself is actively rejecting her attempt to control the narrative.
Which catapults the story into its most jaw-dropping sequence.
Huh.
We are entering the territory of rule number 8. Adapt to your environment. It will not adapt to you.
Emma and Taylor pack up their camp in an absolute panic. They are practically running down the trail, looking over their shoulders, terrified of whoever took the body. As they are hiking out, they run into a hiker they briefly met days earlier, a scruffy guy who goes by the trail name Dirty Bird.
Or Dirty Bird.
And just as Emma is trying to calculate if Dirty Bird is the one hunting them, if he's the one who took the flask, Dirty Bird is suddenly violently shoved from behind, right off the edge of a 100-foot granite cliff.
And the person who steps out of the trees, the person who pushes him to his death, is Logan, very much alive.
I remember reading this and having to read the paragraph 3 times. Let that sink in. Logan isn't dead. The massive twist hits the reader and Emma at the exact same millisecond. Taylor and Logan were working together the entire time.
It changes everything you just read.
The drowning the night before, it was completely staged. Emma wasn't brought into the 100-mile wilderness to be the murderer. She was brought into the woods to be the victim.
The layers of betrayal here are staggering. Logan wanted to get rid of Emma to inherit her money and take full control of her company Vitalist. But he couldn't just divorce her, and he didn't want to risk killing her in the city where there are cameras and cops.
Too risky for him.
So he used Taylor, his ex-girlfriend, who still harbored feelings for him, to manipulate Emma's trauma. He weaponized Emma's own fear against her, luring her into an environment where a tragic hiking accident would never be thoroughly investigated.
It is a profound, soul-crushing betrayal.
Oh,
But what is truly remarkable and what changes the trajectory of the entire novel is Emma's reaction in that split second.
her training kicks in.
A normal person, or at least the fragile, submissive indoorsman persona that Logan believed he had successfully beaten into her, would freeze in shock. They would drop to their knees and beg for their life. But Emma doesn't freeze. The moment she sees Logan alive, the psychological cage she built around her instantly shatters. And the deep, ingrained survivalist training her doomsday father instilled in her takes the wheel.
She doesn't hesitate.
Not for a second. She literally sprints past a stunned Levin. Logan runs directly toward the edge of the cliff and throws her own body off into a 100-foot freefall into the freezing, turbulent river gorge below.
It's such a desperate move.
She miraculously survives the plunge, fights through the rapids paddles into a hidden rocky overhang, and drags herself into a submerged, pitch-black crawl space. The text describes it as smelling heavily of wet animal fur.
Oh, gross.
And she sits there submerged to her neck in freezing water, shivering uncontrollably in the dark while she listens to Logan and Taylor pacing on the rocks above, searching for her broken body.
This sequence brings us to what I consider the true philosophical core of the book. The author uses this moment to explicitly outline 4 distinct types of survival when human beings are forced to deal with overwhelming trauma. And I want to break these down because they are incredibly insightful.
Please do, because this is the stuff that really makes you look at your own life differently.
Absolutely. So the first type of survival is hiding. This perfectly describes Emma's life with Logan up until this moment. When the world feels too dangerous, you build a cage. You lock yourself inside and you intentionally shrink your life down to a microscopic dot to keep the danger out.
You accept a smaller, controlled pain to avoid the vast, unpredictable pain of the outside world.
Exactly. The second type is holding. This is Taylor's entire influencer life. Instead of hiding from the trauma, you curl around it, you cuddle it, you make it your brand, your identity, your source of income.
I feel like we see that everywhere today.
We absolutely do, and there is a profound danger in it when you weaponize your own trauma. When you make your damage your entire identity, you strip yourself of the ability to ever actually heal from it. Because to heal would mean losing who you are. It's a very modern, insidious trap.
That is a brilliant way to put it. Okay, what's the third type?
The third is forgetting. This is the classic flight response. You just run away from the source of the trauma. You stay incredibly busy, you compartmentalize, and you aggressively pretend that the terrible thing never happened at all. You just outrun the ghost.
Right. But Emma, sitting in that freezing, animal-smelling cave, shifts into the fourth type of survival.
Yes. The fourth type is instinct. The text makes this incredibly visceral comparison. It compares this state to a trapped coyote mindlessly chewing off its own leg to escape a steel trap or a cockroach, surviving the blinding heat of a nuclear blast.
It's pure biology.
It is the raw, animalistic, completely thoughtless, and utterly ruthless drive to simply live another second. In this state, survival is no longer a conscious strategy. It is no longer about rules or cages or Instagram posts. It is a pure biological imperative.
She's transformed.
In that dark cave, Emma is no longer the suicidal, depressed woman from the bathtub in the prologue. The domestic victim is dead. She is an apex predator waking up.
So if you are Logan and Taylor standing on the cliff above, what does this shift mean for you? It means you are completely spectacularly screwed.
Right.
Welcome to the hunt.
Rule number 10.
And we're operating under rule number 10 now. Never point a weapon at anything you are not willing to destroy. Taylor, to her credit, eventually manages to capture Emma. She gets the drop on her in the woods, restrains her, and ties her up with heavy paracord at Dirty Bird's stolen campsite.
Logan is exhausted, so he goes to sleep in the tent, telling Taylor they will execute Emma at dawn and throw her body in a ravine.
But Logan and Taylor have fundamentally, fatally underestimated who they have tied up.
They think they have the upper hand purely because they possess the firearm and Emma's hands are bound. It's a very linear, civilized way of thinking about power. But Emma's father taught her to view the entire environment as a weapon.
She's highly observant.
She noticed earlier that Taylor casually tossed a pressurized can of aerosol bug spray onto the dirt right near the edge of the roaring campfire.
This escape sequence is incredible. Emma is sitting there, her hands bound behind her back. Taylor is sitting across the fire holding the gun. Emma starts subtly shifting her weight, acting like she's just uncomfortable complaining about the ropes.
Just waiting for her moment.
And with one precise practice movement, she manages to kick or roll that aerosol can directly into the hottest coals of the fire. She instantly rolls backward into the dark woods.
A few seconds later, the heat expands the gas inside the can, and it explodes into a massive, blinding fireball of shrapnel and chemical flame right in Taylor's face.
The physics of an aerosol explosion in a campfire are devastating. In the sheer blinding chaos and screaming that follows, Emma doesn't just run away. She circles back into the camp.
She systematically steals their food bags. She steals their waterlogged, useless cell phones just to be safe, and then she vanishes into the wild, leaving them with absolutely nothing but the clothes on their backs.
Now the tables are completely, totally turned. Logan and Taylor are the ones stranded without supplies in the 100-mile wilderness. And this is where Logan's deeply ingrained arrogance, the toxic ego that made him an abuser in the first place, leads to his absolute ruin.
He refuses to admit to Taylor or to himself that he is outmatched.
He decides they don't need to stay on the marked Appalachian Trail. He pulls out a wrinkled 5-year-old paper survey map and decides he is going to bushwhack his way through the dense, trackless Maine forest to find an old logging road.
The hubris of that decision is staggering. The text makes a brilliant philosophical point here about the difference between human maps and nature's reality. A map is just a snapshot of a specific fleeting moment in time. It is a human attempt to impose order on chaos.
But nature doesn't care about maps.
But a map doesn't show the massive rock slide that wiped out a path 2 years ago. It doesn't show the dense, impenetrable new growth of saplings that swallowed a gravel logging road over 5 springs. Logan is navigating his life by a lie, insisting the territory conform to his map.
And nature immediately punishes him for it. He steps off the trail, and within an hour, he completely loses his bearings. The dense forest all starts to look exactly the same. The canopy blocks out the sun. He is disoriented, starving, and exhausted.
He literally becomes the human embodiment of the ghost moose.
Wow, yeah, he really does.
He is walking in massive circles, led blindly by his own toxic ego, totally unaware that his brain is scrambled by panic and caloric deficit. And when Taylor, who is also starving and covered in burns from the explosion, starts slowing him down, complaining that she can't walk another step, what does this great protective alpha male husband do?
He abandons her without a second thought. He literally leaves his partner sitting on a mossy rock in the middle of a trackless forest and walks away to save his own skin. It is the ultimate revelation of his cowardice.
Which leaves him entirely isolated, starving, and increasingly desperate as the days drag on. And this vulnerability leads us directly into Emma's absolute masterstroke.
As Emma silently tracks him through the woods because she is hunting him now, she watches Logan stumble into a clearing. He spots a cluster of smooth white mushrooms growing on a rotting log. And because he is ravenous, he falls to his knees and eats them.
Now, when I was reading this, I thought, okay, he found some food, he's foraging.
But there's a specific reason he recognizes those white mushrooms, isn't there?
Yes. He recognizes them because days earlier, back when they were all hiking together and Logan thought he was in control, Emma intentionally pointed those exact mushrooms out to Taylor.
She told Taylor they were edible puffballs.
But she only said it because she knew with absolute certainty that Logan was secretly eavesdropping on their conversation from the trail ahead. She planted that seed of false, deadly information days in advance, anticipating a moment exactly like this.
Wait, are you telling me she planned to poison him with mushrooms days before she even knew he was going to betray her?
No, she planted the information as a contingency. A survivalist always builds contingencies. And it is a genius bone-chilling setup. Because those mushrooms are not edible puffballs. They are Amanita virosa, more commonly known by foragers as the destroying angel.
The destroying angel. Just the name alone tells you everything you need to know. What actually happens when you eat them?
It is one of the most toxic, lethal organisms on planet Earth. The mechanism of death is horrifying. The mushrooms contain amatoxins, which specifically target and destroy RNA polymerase II in the human body.
What does that mean on a cellular level?
It completely halts protein synthesis. Your cells literally forget how to function and begin to die. The physical effects follow a cruel trajectory. First, intense, violent vomiting and abdominal cramping. Then, deviously, the symptoms fade.
They think they're getting better.
The victim experiences a false period of recovery where they think the worst is over. But during that quiet period, the toxins are silently, catastrophically destroying the liver and the kidneys. It results in complete organ failure and a slow, agonizing death.
Emma knew exactly what she was doing.
She didn't just point a weapon at him. She laid a biological landmine and waited for his own hunger and arrogance to make him step on it.
Which brings us to our final act, framed perfectly by rule number 7. Nature is indifferent to whether you live or die. Emma finally reveals herself and confronts Logan. He is sick, actively dying from the destroying angel toxins crawling pathetically in the mud near a pond. But he still has the gun.
And true to his nature, even as his organs are failing, his impulse is violence and control. He points the gun at her.
But Emma doesn't panic. She doesn't dive for cover. She stands her ground and uses her profound awareness of her environment perfectly.
This is my favorite moment in the book.
Emma doesn't even look at the gun. She looks past Logan into the trees behind him, and she speaks in this incredibly calm, soft voice. She says her cubs are up that tree, the one you're standing under.
Logan hears a noise, turns around, and a massive mother black bear charges out of the dense brush.
It is the ultimate violent realization of the book's core themes. Logan spent his entire life and the entire novel believing he was the apex predator. He thought he could dominate women, control the narrative, and bend the sheer wilderness to his will.
But nature is completely, brutally indifferent to his ego. The bear doesn't care about his money or his manipulation. The bear attacks him to protect its young.
Emma stands there, calmly watches the mauling, and when it's over, she walks over to his ruined body. She takes his remaining useful gear, leaving him with a single mocking Cliff Bar and his gun with exactly one bullet left in the chamber. And she turns her back and walks away.
Talk about absolute poetic justice, leaving him the choice of how to end it. So you're probably wondering what happens to Taylor, the influencer who wanted to brand her trauma.
Pete, our logistics guy from the hiker hostel, eventually organizes a search party to look for the missing dirty bird. While searching the deep woods, Pete stumbles upon an abandoned, rotting hunter's cabin.
Inside, he finds Taylor. She is terrified, completely broken psychologically, and literally sitting in her own filth.
Her fake curated persona has been entirely annihilated by the reality of the woods. Pete secures her, and then he walks to the edge of the clearing. He looks down at the soft mud leading into the deep forest, sees a single purposeful set of footprints heading off into the unknown, and he realizes Emma survived.
She beat them both.
The epilogue of the book provides this incredibly beautiful, haunting image of Emma walking deep into the autumn woods. She is completely alone, miles from civilization, but for the first time in her entire life, she is no longer lost.
She has shed the cage Logan built for her, and more importantly, she has shed the suicidal ideation that haunted her in the prologue. She doesn't need external rules anymore.
She makes a final rule for herself from her own internal compass that the only rule that matters now. She is allowed to live.
It gives me actual goosebumps just thinking about it. The transformation from the woman in the bathtub to the woman walking into the endless forest is incredible.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, we absolutely have to share the real-world inspiration behind this whole nightmare, which is buried in the author's acknowledgments.
Oh, this is the best part.
Kat Rosenfield actually got the idea for this specific setting from her own mother. In 1970, her mother and a girlfriend hiked this exact brutal section of the Appalachian Trail near Bodfish Intervale in Barren Mountain.
Decades later, when Rosenfield told her mom she was writing a thriller and needed a setting to, quote, kill someone's terrible husband, her mom didn't even blink.
She just pulled out a topographic map, pointed to the 100-mile wilderness, and said, "I know just the place."
I love that detail so much. It adds such a wonderful, dark, generational layer of reality to the fiction. You can feel the authenticity of the woods, the mud, the exhaustion in every single chapter, because it's deeply rooted in real geography and a real lived understanding of how indifferent and unforgiving that specific landscape truly is.
Absolutely. It makes the terror tangible. So as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
We've spent this time talking about the psychological cages. Emma built the strict rules she desperately followed just to feel a fleeting sense of safety in a chaotic world.
I want you to take a hard look at your own life. Consider the invisible cages you might have built to protect yourself.
Think about the rigid routines you cling to, the relationships you maintain out of fear, rather than love the curated personas you wear at work or online, just to avoid facing what's really going on inside your own head.
What would actually happen if the wilderness, a sudden crisis, a massive disruption, stripped all your comfortable rules away?
Who would you become if you were suddenly violently forced to rely only on your deepest, most buried instincts?
If the map burned and you were left in the dark, would you be the one walking out of the woods?
That is a question that truly stays with you long after the final page is turned. It forces you to examine the foundation of your own survival.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into how to survive in the woods. Keep questioning the rules, keep examining your maps, and we'll see you next time.